Olá, tudo bem? Aqui é o Jorge, mais um episódio final de A Case of Distrust. Esse é o episódio final porque eu tenho algumas... Eu já sei que ele é porque eu tenho alguns planos pro canal, então esse tem que ser o episódio final. Desculpa que tem dois cachorros de ruas diferentes se conversando aqui. Espero que não atrapalhe muito. Vocês vão ouvir, né? Mas espero que não atrapalhe muito vocês. Esse episódio eu vou cortar mais. Eu vou mostrar só as partes que eu realmente consegui alguma dica nova, essas coisas, tá bom? Então, sem mais delongas, eu volto quando tiver alguma coisa, tá bom? Oi, eu lembrei de perguntar pro Ricardo aonde que o Redstone Stable tá, né? O barbeiro. E aí, isso ele começa. You yourself said it was strange to have a black man sitting in a white man's barber chair, I said. In fact, he smiled, it is even more rare to be in a rich white man's barber chair. So why did Stable invite you over? I asked. He sighed. You know, a white man was mild and nice to you, but never treat you as an equal, no matter your education or background. That is, until they require something of you. What does Stable need from you? I asked. He smiled. Oh, I like you, miss. You get to the point when it matters, but you are fun all the same. There is much to respect in that. I was glad that I nurtured his friendship. Stable wants to know about Connor Green, he continued. How Green died and why, you see? He knows that yours truly was playing at the 10 spoon last night. Stable wanted to ask me some questions this morning. Well, now, how can I refuse such a fantastic request? And where did Stable go? I asked. He was here, congenial and unhurried. Then he received a telephone call and said he had to check on something at his 10 foreign racetrack. He told me to sit tight until he returned, and here we are. I nodded thanks. Pô, eu vou pra lá agora, meu brother. Agora. Dá pra ir pra lá? Deixa eu ver. Dá! Então vamos que vamos. 10 Foreign Racetrack. Stable was at the 10 Foreign Racetrack near San Bruno. I could ride over there to talk with him. I grabbed a taxi cab, mas eu não falei com ele. The 10 Foreign Racetrack had reopened the previous year with the help of millionaire Adolf Spreckles and some associates, one of whom was Stable. Today no races were ongoing, and the sheer size of the empty grounds and the grandstands were impressive. I hoped the locked turnstile and wandered the grandstands and some of the grounds. But all my searching turned up nothing and nobody, not even Stable. I returned nearer the entrance to search for more clues. Tá. Agora dá pra ver um pouquinho mais. Ok. Empty boxes were thrown next to the old batting house. I spent some time rummaging through them, but found nothing of interest. I removed the trash bin's lid to let my hands play with something while my thoughts had time to form. Peering in, I saw the biggest break in the case thus far. An automatic pistol, .45 caliber, was right on top of the pile. I reached in to get a closer look. Eita! A throat cleared behind me. I pocketed the weapon quickly, then turned around to Stable's muck grin. Have you come to watch the horses? He asked. Rumor says that running through fire will be the victor. Though at times it can be dangerous to put shock in rumors. Caralho, moleque, Redstone Stable na nossa frente, meu brother. Eu vou falar com ele. Por que você não tava na barbearia? Eu adoro esse barulhinho de que eu fiz a pergunta certa. Ricardo told me something interesting. I put to him. He says you got a wire from somebody and rushed out, leaving him mid-trim. For the first time I saw Stable frown. Well, business and pleasure sometimes mix, Miss Malone. Yes, I was telephoned for a million, said she. But that's now all sorted. Caralho, moleque. Caralho, moleque. Deixa eu falar um pouquinho com ele, né? Sobre o Green, né? I told him that Connor Green was found near the Tinspoon, the coroner reporting his time of death around midnight. That is a late hour, Stable said. Miss Malone, I am always fast asleep in my bed at that time of the night. So nobody was there with you? No, I was alone. In response to my raised eyebrow, he continued, I would never lie to you, Miss Malone. Of course, it would be just as difficult for you to disprove my story as it would be for me to prove it. And we live in a civilized nation that requires your proof, not mine. Stable might have had the opportunity to kill Green, but I've had to first place him concretely. I assure you, he said, I was home asleep at that time. Eu não tenho nada que eu consiga falar no momento sobre isso. Green's Oakland past is a lie. Did you know that Green is lying about his Oakland past? Stable raised his eyebrows. Well, you are volunteering quite interesting information. I did not know that, but thank you for it. Filho da puta, hein, brother? Tá. Deixa eu falar com o Ray Carter. Sobre o Ray Carter, né? Não teve nada. Deixa eu perguntar como que ele soube meu nome. Como que ele sabia meu nome? How did you know my name? I questioned. He smiled again. He apparently lied smiling when he was pleased with himself. Barbers hear gossip from around town, Miss Malone. Sometimes that gossip is worth remembering. And what gossip had you heard about me? I asked. Just that niece of the late San Francisco detective Louis Malone had resigned from her policewoman duties and taken up a private detection agency. But that was months ago, was it not? I confess I have not heard much since. I asked if he'd known Louis. Not well enough, he said. I hear he did his job by the letter of the law, and I lost that off about years ago. Caralho, meu brother. Eu não vou mostrar pra ele o... Oh, fuck. Não sei se você ouviu meu pai falando. Falar sobre as caixas. Interessante, né? Nada. Tudo bem. Tô com medo de falar coisas pra ele. Perguntar sobre a Little Fanny. Será que ele sabe? Nothing. Nothing came of it. Deixa eu perguntar pra ele se ele... Então vamos, vai. Green was shot last night, I told him. Any chance you'd know the piece that plugged him? Miss Malone, I am not the sort to be associated in any way with a pistol. Ai, caralho. Vou mostrar. Ai. I found an automatic in your trash bin. This is a .45 in a gangster caliber. This .45 is a gangster caliber. What are the chances it's the same one that killed Green? Stable frowned again. I was beginning to like his frowns. So it seems to me, I continued, that your boys found the murder weapon in the trash, then called you around to see what to do about it. Yes, he admitted. I was telephoned to look at the weapon. We were about to phone the police about it, when I noticed you were wandering the grounds. Why were you so interested in the Green case? And why is this gun here? He sighed. Do you remember, Miss Malone, that Connor Green had already attempted to frame me? Once I had learned of his death, I thought that whomever had killed him would also try to blame me. I invited Carter for a trim in exchange for information about the murder, and I told my associates to watch for anything suspicious at the racetrack. As soon as the gun was found, they telephoned me, and here we are. So you still won't admit to the murder? I pushed him. Think what you want, Miss Malone, but I had no reason to kill Connor Green. And if you think otherwise, you were just playing into the game set up by the real killer. That was the story Stable was sticking with. Still, I had much further along than I had been. I was much further along than I had been, and that gave me reason to smile. Tá, interessante. Agora eu vou falar então sobre os porquês, né? Se ele acha que... Se ele fez a própria pesquisa dele, eu quero saber o que ele descobriu. Então, sobre como, né? I brought up the pistol again, but the kid just scoffed. Tá bom. Sobre a oportunidade. Quando uma pessoa poderia ter? I told him that Connor Green was found near the tin spoon, the coroner reporting his time of death around midnight. As I said, Miss Malone, I was home asleep and at that time. Eu não tenho nada o que falar no momento. Ask about motive. Perguntar sobre por que outras pessoas poderiam. Ele falou alguma coisa. Green already thought you had it out for him, I said. What if he had good cause to think that? Wouldn't his bootlegging scheme put you under? Miss Malone, stable smile. I assure you I do no illegal rum running. Green's story is simply a ruse. Have you not discovered that yet? I had no reason whatsoever to murder Green. Deixa eu tentar contradizer. Por o Tiny Paul ter dado dinheiro pro Green? How is this related? Tá bom. Ok. Still wasn't sure if Stable did in fact bootleg, but I couldn't think of anything to prove it, or that he had any motivations at all to kill Green. Tá bom. Eu tô tranquilo, pra falar a verdade, né? Nossa, que esquisitíssimo, né? Deixa eu ver aqui. Wooden slats bordered the window to the old Batten house. The Walker Otis measures of 1909 prohibited gambling on horses, which meant most racetracks shuttered, including the Denver. But Stable and a few other investors reopened the track the previous year, claiming to operate without taking bets. The first snack into the racetrack. Eu vou agora pro Southern Coffee perguntar pro Frankie se ele sabe de alguém que teria essa arma. Às vezes dá, né? Eu falei que eu ia cortar um monte, por enquanto eu não cortei nada. E aí, Francão, tudo bom? Eu queria falar pra ele sobre a arma, né? I found this gun in Stable's racetrack grounds, I said to Frankie. He raised his brows in amazement. So you think that could be the murder weapon? That could point at the Stable as the killer. I nodded but still needed more information. Got anything else? Frankie needed? Frankie nodded. Eu queria saber sobre a oportunidade, sobre quando. Ele não falou nada demais. Redstone Stable, não. Tá, já volto. Oi, eu tô aqui há mó tempão falando com todo mundo. Uma coisinha bem pequena, mas eu vim falar com a Lil Fanny de novo e fui dar uma olhada no lugar inteiro, na casa dela inteira, e tinha um chapéu. Eu perguntei pra ela sobre o chapéu, ela falou isso. I brought up the hat on the rack. Who does that belong to? What do you mean? She asked. I think it's my husband's. Green was wearing his hat in the police photo. Aquele morreu, né? Fanny winced at my reference to the photograph of her husband. He may have more than one, she said. Difícil, mas eu tô... Pra mim é ela. No momento eu tô achando que é ela. Mas eu vou dar uma olhada a mais. Já volto. Oi, eu tava perguntando pra ela Smith sobre o porquê que ela estava segurando as lágrimas, que tinha isso nos statements. Eu achei que eu já tinha perguntado isso pra ela no outro e era sobre o Connor Green, porque ela conhecia ele, sei lá. Mas não, eu perguntei o que era, ela falou um negócio antes, mas era só uma introduçãozinha. Is that copper who was just here? He kept wanting me to feed him drinks, and the more I put in him, the more fresh he got with me. She heaved a sigh. It's not your fault, I said. Of course it isn't, she exclaimed. All men are brutes, but I can't exactly slip away from a copper. Anyhow, I'm just frantic because do cara. O cara que veio, que era o nosso tipo chefe, que era mó babaca da polícia. Because of the booze, I'm sure it'll wear off. She turned her gaze back to the cards on the table. She was putting up a strong mask, but I could tell something about Grant's interaction had rattled her. The truth is, most women wear a mask in public. Almost every one of us has a story about being mistreated or worse. Me too. É isso. De pouco a pouco, galinha enche o bico. Já volto. Oi, fez o barulhinho da estou no caminho certo. Eu perguntei pro Ray Carter sobre as cartas na mesa do Tin Spoon, que eu peguei, fui falar com ela Smith de novo e eu peguei essa evidência. Então, how much did you win last night? I asked him. Oh, a heap of it, he grinned. And how many aces did it take you to get there? His face showed genuine surprise. You know that Danny Paul's a mean-spirited, no-good, black-hating son of a bitch, he said. He pays us pennies, but wants us to be good and smile for him. Well, I am not having that, miss. No, I am not having that at all. Yes, I took him for a ride, and I feel no remorse for it. In some way, it is all part of the game. I said that was alright, but Danny Paul might see it differently. Oh, come now. You would not tell him, would you? You would not tell him, would you? I don't see a reason. I need to, I said. He smiled. Well, now you are alright. More than alright, it seems. I just nodded back and each side relief. You know, he continued, I bet I had no reason to cheat last night. Entendi. Ele passou a mão no... Passou a perna no Tiny Paul, que tá certo, tem que se fuder mesmo, cara, é uma filho da puta. Not with the way Ellie kept distracting him. Yes, he was very distracted indeed. I raised a questioning brow. Ella Smith and Tiny Paul had something going on? That girl throws herself on him like she threw water on a fire. Caralho, brother. I noted that, then changed our subject of conversation. E ela falou que ela não é íntima com o Tiny Paul, hein? Daquela vez. Muito obrigado, Ray Carter. Você é meu personagem favorito. O Frank perdeu. O Ray Carter é mais legal ainda, meu brother. Vamos falar com ela sobre isso aí. Que porra é essa? Hein? Que porra é essa? Eu já tô gravando há bastante tempo, cara. Bastante tempo esse último episódio. Ask about notes, statements. Ricardo flings herself at Paul. Ricardo tells me that you and Danny Paul are close. I said, is that true, Miss Smith? Smith squinted at me hotly, then let out a sigh. Okay, he's right, she blurted. I'm in love with Paul. That's no crime. It was obvious she'd wanted to hide the relationship. If the two of them ever broke it off, her career would be doomed. Evidente. I empathize with her. The heart never plays fair. This won't get out of my account, I promised. But you have to tell me Tiny Paul's whereabouts. She sighed and gave me the address of a Pacific Heights apartment building. He lives in a penthouse on the top floor. Just don't tell him I told you. I thanked him for Paul's address and changed the subject. Caralho, brother, vamos que vamos. Agora sim, agora falar com o maior filho da puta do lugar. Eu ainda acho que é a Lil Fanny, a esposa do Green. Mas, né? Vamos pra cobertura do Tiny Paul. I flagged the taxi cab. Já tô começando a ficar com sono. Paul's building was still new, built only a few years earlier, but it was already a beacon of Pacific Heights, tall and proud above its surroundings. Its crisp vanilla interior was accented with gold, and its elevator was run with an equally immaculate operator. I rode it to the top floor bungalow that belonged to Tiny Paul. Caralho. Paul's home was extravagant. Every item adorning the apartment was of high quality, but there was an evident lack of finesse to their combination, as though Paul had simply purchased expensive accoutrements without any thought for design. Deixa eu bater nos lugares. The oil paintings that hung on the wall had no particular theme. One had roses, another showed a landscape, but each of their frames was ornately carved from a fine wood. A hat hung from the rack nailed to the back wall, and as did an empty gun holster. Caralho, meu brother. A cluster of brown glass bottles were on the far table. They were empty. The couch and chairs had patterned olive-colored cushions. Their arms and legs were a gaudy shade of gold, matching the gold of the tables. Paul's light brown shoes were discarded beside the couch he lay on. Tiny Paul was sprawled across the Chesterfield, smelling of rubbing alcohol. Vamos falar com o nosso brother, né? Nossa senhora. I said hello. It took a century, but his eyes eventually climbed to meet mine. He slurred a greeting. I figured that drunk Tiny Paul could be more honest. I thought it was a good time to grill him. Vamos lá. Primeiro que ele não tava lá. Por que você não tava lá? Hein? I went to the tin spoon and you weren't there, said Paul, so you decided to pester me here instead. Foi isso sim, porque ele foi morto, né? Green was killed around midnight, I told him. Do you remember anything from then? After the jazz stopped playing at 10, o jazz parou às 10. I went up to the pool room to shoot. I think the whole band came in. We played cards until early in the morning. So you were in the tin spoon all night. After 10, he nodded, though I did leave before then. I met with Redstone Stable at 9 o'clock, then around 5 in the morning. It seemed like he hadn't slept much. Opa, o Redstone Stable falou que ele tinha dormido toda a noite inteira? Como é que é isso? 5 da manhã? Com cara de sono? Como é que é isso? You met with Stable? I asked. Why? I ain't telling you that, sister. Then why would I believe you all at all? Believe what you want, he snorted. I was in the pool hall and Green was shot. Tá bom. I didn't challenge him on that point. Green was found close to the tin spoon. Green was killed around midnight. I told you he was playing cards till early morning. Como todos falam que tava todo mundo junto lá. The Green was killed with a .45. Told Paul that Green had been killed with a large automatic. He replied sardonically, "What is your country coming to? Our country coming to? So many people owning firearms." Deixa eu mostrar pra ele a arma então. I described the gun I'd found to him and how it matched the type gangsters were known to carry. His jaw stiffened. Paul's deep breath carried more booze than a bootlegger struck. I don't like being called a gangster, Malone, he slurred. But fine, I do carry a gun like that one, and mine is in its proper place. Não tá não. Caralho, será que roubaram a arma dele pra usar? I pointed at the empty holster in the room. That strap just hold. Yours slingshot? Where's the gun? His jaw stiffened. I keep my gun in that holster, and when I'm not at home, that holster stays in my person or in my jacket. So where is it now, Paul? What if I told you I lost it yesterday? How could you disprove that? I raised an eyebrow. A weak story, Paul. Weak or not, is what I'm telling you. What are you going to do about it? Just asking questions, I said to him. A detective has to cover all her leads. Paul took a heavy sigh, but in his drunken state, he didn't do much more. I moved to other questions. Deixa eu falar com ele sobre a ela, né? Smith is in love with Paul. Ella Smith tells me that you two are lovers, I put to him. He let out a low grumble. Smith was beautiful, but she was Chinese, and Paul wouldn't sit well if rumors swirled about the two of them. Paul, I pressed, is she lying to me? Paul sighed with a no, and followed with this just betting between us, nothing more. Não sei se eu tenho muito mais a falar para ele. Eu vou perguntar se ninguém entrou ou saiu. Green was killed around midnight, I told him. Do you remember anything from then? Side, I told you I was playing cards. Tá bom. Ok. Deixa eu perguntar sobre se que a Fanny was in the pool hall at midnight. Ella Smith tells me little Fanny was absent from the billiards room at midnight. I told him. So? He asked impatient. So was she? Malone, when I've got my head down in the poker game, the building could burn to the ground and I wouldn't notice. I know she came up with us and I walked her to the cab when we left. Então tá tudo bem. Otherwise, I don't know who was in or out of the billiards room. Ok, tudo bem. Acho que por enquanto tá bom. Eu vou ir pro Redstone Stable, né? Ver qual é que é. Né, meu brother? Que agora ele se fodeu, né? Agora ele se fodeu. Porque eu vou até contradizer ele pra ficar ainda mais impactante. Pra tirar ele de resguardo. Cadê? Talk. Ask about notes. Não vou acusar ele ainda. Eu vou perguntar sobre Midnight. Told him that Connor, I said, Miss Malone, I was home asleep at that time. Contradict? Porque o Tiny Paul disse que o stable hadn't slept all night. Tiny Paul tells me that you two met last night about the stable, and then you met again early this morning. He says you have looked ragged, not much sleep then. Very well, Stable sighed. I do admit that I spent yesterday searching for information on this case, and that perhaps the search bled into this morning. In my situation, would you not also look for clues against Green, a man who had accused you of blackmail? I must have been with him, armed down now with the knowledge that Stable had no alibi the previous night. However, he continued, in my search to clear my name, I did find a fact that might interest you. A fact that I had kept to myself, but if Paul wishes to lay claims at my feet, I might as well tell you. I looked at him quizzically. The tin spoon has a back exit. The patrons likely have no suspicion of it, but I am certain many of the staff know. They could enter and leave without anyone noticing. Allo, Fanny Green. And how do you know this? I asked. Never mind how I came about the information. Just be thankful I am giving it to you. If you do not believe me, I'd encourage you to ask others about it. That was a peculiar development. I noted it and continued my questioning. Eu tô bem com o Redstone Stable agora. Ele me deu o que eu preciso. Eu iria falar com a Fanny agora, mas eu vou perguntar primeiro pra ela. Não, melhor, porque eu gosto do Ray Carter. Eu vou perguntar pro Ray Carter qual que é a boa. Se ele realmente fala que é verdade, aí eu vou pra Fanny e ver qual é que é. Qual é que é, meu brother? Caralho, moleque. Ela saiu rapidinho. Pá. Matou e foi embora. Oh. Talk to him. Ask about notes. Statement. Redstone Stable. The tin spoon has a back exit. I had a source that tells me there's a back exit to the tin spoon, I said. Know anything about it? Back exit? No, I am afraid I have never heard of such a thing. Caralho. Ok. Ricardo não tá ligado. Não tá ligado nessa. Deixa eu perguntar então perdão pelo barulho, pro Tiny Paul, né? Se ele não sabe, o Tiny Paul tem que saber. Pô, o Tiny Paul é o dono do lugar, né? Vamos lá. E às vezes o cara tá falando merda também, né? O Ricardo tá tentando... Stable tells me there's a back exit to your joint, I put to him. Might you have escaped that way last night? Back exit? Paul asked. I don't know what medicine Stable is using or what medicine he should be using, but I don't know of any back exits to the tin spoon. However long I pressed him, Paul wouldn't admit there was any way out of the tin spoon beyond the front door. Caralho, meu brother, como é que o Redstone Stable sabe disso? Até ele nem quis falar a fonte dele. Caralho, eu vou lá perguntar pra ela, né? Puta merda, brother, como assim? O Tiny Paul... Agora eu fiquei surpreso mesmo, porque o Tiny Paul devia saber disso. About notes... tin spoon has a back exit. Gosto desse barulho. I have a source that says there's a back exit at a tin spoon. What do you know about this? Alice Smith nodded. Yes, we do have one. It's behind the women's changing rooms. I can't imagine any of the men know about it. They would never be able to get back there without causing a riot. But the girls use it whenever we need to slip away from customers who are, she paused, too eager. So there's a back exit to the tin spoon that only the women know about. That's right, she said. Ah, Fanny Green tá fudida, caralho. Foi você, caralho. Se fudeu, caralho. Vem. É meio... Tô chegando pra você vir. E aí, Mrs. Green? Deixa eu te perguntar. Você, por acaso, falou que... Hey, what were you doing last night, I asked. As I said before, I was in the pool room from around 10 o'clock until early in the morning. Alice Smith tells it different, I reminded her, while the doorman says otherwise. So either I was in the billiards hall or stepped out briefly to powder my face. Mas Alice Smith disse que o tin spoon has a back exit. There is a back door that only the female performers can use. Is that right, Mrs. Green? Oh yeah, she said. I think you're right. I stepped out at some point during the night, Mrs. Green admitted. Sometimes a girl needs fresh air. But I could not have been gone long. I was in the billiards room most of the night. So Mrs. Green had no alibi at the time of Connor's death. I noted that and continued asking other questions. Caralho, brother. Tá bom. Então, tanto a Green, a Leofane, quanto o Redstone Stable não tem álibi nenhum, não tem uma história do que eles estavam fazendo, né? No momento da morte. Que é o que me deixa mais interessado no sentido do... Oh, perdão, veio um soluço. Pra saber quem que matou, pra mim o mais importante é onde que aquela pessoa tava naquela hora. I asked him about something in my notebook. Ih, caralho. Bom, eu vou pesquisar um pouco mais, né, com as pessoas aí e já venho quando achar alguma coisa de picante. Já volto. Olha, ok. Eu falei com uma galera, não achei mais nenhuma coisa de interessante, então eu vou fazer uma jogada arriscada. Pra mim, tá decidido que foi ela que matou. Então eu vou acusar ela. Não é como se eu não tivesse coisas suficiente pra falar. Eu vou acusar ela. É agora. I thought of accusing Fanny Green of killing her husband. Accusing someone of murder was certain to agitate them. I knew it was not something I should do lightly. They would refuse any further casual chats. But if I was confident that she had killed Connor, including knowing the means, the motivation, and the opportunity for her to do so, then I should accuse her. Olha, ela tem a oportunidade. Ela tem os means. Ela pode ter alguma... quer dizer, ela tem a motivation, mas os means... Por que ela teria uma pistola? A pistola é parecida com a do Tiny Paul. Ela é próxima ao Tiny Paul? Eu não diria. Eu não tenho nenhuma evidência disso. Porque tem uma coisa nas notas aqui. Deixa eu mostrar. Ó, aqui no Tiny Paul, someone close could snag his gun. Né? Eu vou... Eu vou falar um pouco mais com o Tiny Paul sobre esse someone close aí. Eu volto antes. Já volto. Oi. Eu tava tentando ver isso do negócio que eu tava falando ali, o Fanny ter alguma relação com o Tiny Paul. E aí eu tô tentando jogar várias coisas sobre tanto o Connor quanto a Fanny. E ele não tá me dando nada, mas aqui eu fui pelas evidências, que é difícil pra mim pensar nas evidências que são pequenininhas, mas daquela planta que tá morrendo na casa dos Green, falei assim. E falei pra ele disso. Aí é isso aqui. I know a girl who likes flowers like the ones on your table, I said to him. Called green, but she likes yellow flowers. How do you figure that? I don't think he liked the way it figured. He stared at me, eyes ablaze. That told me all I needed. Tiny Paul was Fanny Green's admirer. Então ele, no mínimo, curtia a Fanny Green. Ele tem flores iguais, aparentemente, eu não percebi. Just asking questions, I said to him. A detective has to cover all her leads. Paul took a heavy sigh, but in his drunken state, he didn't do much more. Ok. Ask about notes, statements. Ele falou até Paul Green's dad. Uma hora que eu falei outra coisa, então ele tá feliz que o Green morreu. Aí, Tiny Paul is buying Fanny Green flowers. I pressed Paul further on what he already told me, but I got nothing useful from it. Will there be anything else? Não. Tá bom, eu vou falar com a Leo Fanny, então. Lá com ele. Aqui, eu não tinha visto isso. A wrapped bouquet of flowers lay on the table. They were vibrant yellow. They reminded me of flowers I'd seen earlier, but I couldn't place them at the moment. Eu não tinha visto o buquê. Eu fui só jogando todas as evidências até ele me falar alguma coisa. Que é um jeito infeliz de jogar, mas é um jeito. Vamos falar então com a Mrs. Green. Já que ela ganhou flores do Tiny Paul. E aí, qual é? Tá ganhando flores de outro brother? Qual que é isso? Paul is an admirer of Mr. Green. I had a few sources connecting you and Tiny Paul. Mrs. Green, is he your lover? Her face turned crimson. She denied my claims with just about every word in the thesaurus, but that face had told me enough. Her and Tiny Paul were having an affair which could give me enough motive, which gave her enough motive to kill her husband. Tá aí, a gente tem a motivação agora. Ela é isso. Ela não tem um álibi de que horas que ela tava lá. Ela é amante, ou assim, pelo menos não tem toda a cara que os dois são amantes, então ela pode ter pego a arma dele, porque só alguém muito perto dele, já que ele traz a arma sempre perto dele, poderia ter pego a arma. Acabou, brother, acabou. Sim, accuse Fanny Green. Fanny Green, I started boldly. You killed your husband. A stillness permeated the room as I spoke my words. I can prove your means, motivation, and opportunity for the murder. Fanny's face contorted like I'd first seen her in Southern Coffee. She barked at me. What are you saying? I love my husband dearly. How dare you accuse me of murder? She hopped her way out of breath, which gave me a chance to prove it. Prove means como eles poderiam ter. Ela pegou a arma do amante dela, do Tiny Paul. Tiny Paul's gun is missing, and he says only somebody close to him could have grabbed it. What are you implying, Miss Malone? Just that anybody in the billiards room could have taken his gun. Miss Malone, I'd be crazy to try to take a gangster's gun. He'd have shot me with it first. I was not close to Tiny Paul. I had shown Mrs. Green that Paul's missing gun could have been the murderous weapon, but I'd yet to tie her to it, and I'd yet to prove any motive or opportunity for her to kill her husband. Mas o motivo é que ela e o Tiny Paul eram amantes. Eles tinham caso. That you were close enough to Paul to take his gun. She screamed until she was blue, but I didn't believe her denials. An affair could give her enough motivation to kill her husband, and access to Paul's gun would give her the means. I had shown Mrs. Green that Paul's missing gun could have been the murder weapon. Considering her affair with Tiny Paul, she also would have the perfect motive to kill her husband. I just needed to prove that Mrs. Green had the opportunity for murder, que foi a primeira coisa que a gente conseguiu, porque ela não tem nenhum álibi pro momento que o Green foi morto. Ela saiu, ninguém lembra dela justamente nessa hora que ele foi morto. You admitted to being gone for parts of the night, I told her. That could have given you the perfect opportunity to murder your husband. She hopped at that for a while, but it stuck. It was clear now. I put it to her. Mrs. Green, you're the only one of my suspects with provable motive, means, and opportunity for murder. You knew you had to leave your husband. You loved Paul. And as often happens, you began hating Connor because of it. So you tailed him to see what he was scheming. Maybe you could sink his plans and have the mob to do your dirty work. Then you met me. You learned your husband had been receiving death threats, and you knew that was your play. If he died, police would blame it on the underground. So last night, after your singing, you called Connor to the tin spoon. You snuck out of the billiards room the back way, taking Paul's gun with you. That's when you shot him. She looked at me hotly about to burst, but then she sighed and stared down at her feet. She began to cry. However many opiates were running through her blood, they had lost all their effectiveness. I put an arm around her as she wept. Connor had made my life miserable, she said between sobs. Look around this dump. That's how ruined I am inside. Oh, that manipulative little sneak. You're right, I hated him. It's why I started going with Paul in the first place. She balked at my surprise. Oh no, I never loved Paul. I wanted him to kill Connor. Caralho. But after learning about Ella, she trailed off. Oh, how could I convince Paul if he loved someone else? Pois é, I had no way of leaving Connor. I slumped back to misery. What about a divorce? I offered. Divorce, she screamed the word back at me. Connor would never give me that. They say we're emancipated, sure, but we still need our husband's permission to leave his home. Antes você precisava que não é se quisesse, é só se o homem pedisse que poderia rolar o divórcio. No Brasil foi assim até muito mais tempo. I was the only good thing that Bum owned, and he would never let go of me. That's why I was chasing him yesterday, she continued. If I could prove infidelity, I'd demand a split in court. But I got all excited when I saw you standing in your doorway. She started breathing more heavily. I had to follow you to make sure, but I was certain that I had my out. Only, she sniffed, only it happened you were above board. You're a detective, and I was still trapped. After we met, I came home to find Connor waiting for me. He said we'd be leaving for St. Louis. She took a gap of air and continued, leaving everything I'd known for a place I'd never been, with a man I didn't love. I couldn't do it, and I told him so. And then he struck me. She wiped away her tears, and with them came her blush and thick camouflage powder. A liver-colored spot the size of a silver dollar showed on her cheekbone. Caralho, o cara bateu nela, brother. Struck me, eu achei que era isso mesmo. Cacete. Ele queria ir pra St. Louis. Caralho. He just marched out the doors, she continued through her waterworks, and I didn't know what to do. And then you thought of Paul's gun, I concluded for her. That's right. Maybe Paul wouldn't kill Connor, but I knew he carried a cannon, and I knew I could get to it. So you took Paul's gun and killed your husband, I said. No, she said. No, that was my plan, but... She broke off her sentence with a sniff and started another. I went to Paul's apartment late in the afternoon and grabbed his pistol. Then I came back here. I sat in this chair, patting the gun in my hand, wondering if I would do it. That's when he came in. Your husband? I offered. No, a much kinder man. Oh, he listened so well. I even told him she paused, about my plan. This other man, you know him? I asked. She nodded a yes. He said he understood everything. He said he could frame the murder. He said nothing worry. Caralho, he took the gun. Oh, she cried, but I couldn't let him go through with it. You see, that's why I left the tin spoon last night, to stop him. That was when I met Redstone Stable. In response to my raised eyebrow, she explained, I only met him last night. I had no idea that he had anything to do with my husband until this morning. The police told me at the station that Connor had suspected Stable, but I knew instantly that he was a terrible man. A woman's intuition never lies. Stable talks like a snake and has the looks to match. So we were both searching for the same person last night, I asked. Yes, but he wasn't around, I think, she sobbed. I am tired of this, I said. Who is it? It's the owner of that hat. Pode crer, não foi Redstone Stable. Redstone Stable just foi mesma coisa que ela. It's the owner of that hat, she said, pointing to it. It's Franklin! Ai, eu sabia! Eu falei pra vocês que era o Frank. Eu falei que era o Frank. Tinha que ser. A pessoa amigável é sempre a pessoa mal, é sempre a pessoa ruim. Frankie, I asked. She continued slowly. Yes, he took the gun from me yesterday. I was too dazed to argue. Nice story, I said, but she still fit the bill just fine. Phyllis, even if I had the gun, how could I know where to plant it? I only met Stable last night and I knew nothing about him. Frankly, had known about the case from you, isn't that right? Ele sabia de tudo. You're only telling this to me now? I asked. What's the big idea stringing me along? Phyllis, she said softly, Franklin did this for me. He saved me. If that awful man Stable has to take the fall so that Franklin can stay free, well, she trailed off. I shook my head and looked at her. If she was telling the truth, Stable could confirm it. And if she was lying, I thought, what if she ran? Well, she would get stopped soon enough. Good looks can be a curse and would be a cinch to snatch her. Besides, with those opiates in her, she would have difficulty standing, let alone running anywhere. I gazed at her and she understood what I was thinking. I'll be right here if you come back. I wondered why she would fabricate such a story and if she knew she was stuck. Then I thought, what if it was the truth? I had to speak with Frankie. Stood up from the chair, still stunned. I remember grabbing the hat and staring at it. I knew I had to go to sell him coffee. All my actions from those moments blurred together. I only remembered those thoughts racing through my head. Cara, loucura. Eu sabia, né? Eu falei pra vocês. Inclusive, eu não tô vendo quanto de tempo tá rolando esse episódio, mas deve ser bem grande. Então também me desculpa por isso. Mas, ao mesmo tempo, não, tá tudo certo. Frankie had been infatuated with Mrs. Green. He could have gone to visit her. He could have taken the gun. He knew about Stable from when I told him of the case, and he could have planted it at his racetrack. Those facts might be explained away innocently, but it was the combination. Frankie was the only person with means, motivation, and opportunity to kill Green. Frankie? What's that? I stepped out of the cab, hoping Frankie could give me another explanation for all of it. I walked down the creaking. Será que foi ele? Será que foi o Green que tirou ele do beisebol? I must have spent some time looking around the place, nailing it. Eventually my eyes fell on Frankie. He gave me his generous smile that I knew well. I pulled out the hat and showed it to him. This hat belongs to you, I said in a flat tone. Frankie gaped. If I had any doubts, that look erased them. You killed Connor Green. Frankie's next sentence was short, delivered after a sigh. I always remembered it. I can't lie to you, he said. My jaw began to quiver, either from sadness or anger. It was hard to be sure. Why get wrapped up in this? I asked. Does that dimple girl mean so much to you? Frankie shook his head. This will be a long story, he started. I let him talk. As heated as I was, I had to know why Frankie would kill my client. Is that sheet? He motioned to the newspaper flap on the bar. 1887, the St. Louis Browns. St. Louis, eh? My last good season. My career was ruined by Thomas Kinney. Kinney was a mob boss, you see. He ran St. Louis politics, above ground and below. He was crude to everyone, sure, but he had a special hate for blacks. In 1887, that hate came to baseball. One practice, a local kid comes up to the fence and calls Murray, our left fielder, over to him. Toma guardado. He tells Murray that every Browns player has to sign onto a letter which says that we refuse to play against the Brooklyn Cubans, a colored team. The kid then runs off. We all knew who the others had really come from. If I refused to ink it, Kinney's gang would run me out of baseball or worse. But some of the best teammates and people I'd known over the years had been black. I was torn up about it. In the end, I guess I was just a kid who wanted to play. I didn't want trouble. I signed with the others. It was the worst decision I've ever made, Malone. It's haunted me since. I started on the hooch. I never played the same again. I kept listening. As Frankie continued, I became the booze hound of St. Louis and dumps at every bar in town. But this louse had tales about old Thomas Kinney and I in a way of telling them that kept the others interested. Maybe my rumors worked. Kinney lost the next election. Just a few weeks later, he died of tuberculosis. Kinney's partner Tom Egan blamed me for all of it. I knew I had to blow St. Louis. So I went to Philly, my hometown. I ran into my old pitching partner Matt Kilroy, who had opened a bar. He invited me to run it with him, as long as I stopped drinking myself. Under his eye, I made it. I got sober by working in a speakeasy. If you can believe that, I even married Kilroy's sister and became a stepfather for her 2 boys. I was engrossed and continued to listen as Frankie went on. Well, by then Egan had renamed the gang, and Egan's Rats had spread east. They came for me one night and I barely ducked their spray. Lucky a cop was near his beat, or they would have circled around and finished the job. I had a great life in Philly, but I had to give it up. I couldn't put my new family in that danger. I fled out west, where I knew the Rats didn't have a foothold. Philly was the second time those bastards ruined my life. I ended for him, and when he discovered that Green was part of Egan's Rats, you wouldn't let them ruin you a 3rd time. Franklin laughed. No, Malone, I could run easy. My life here ain't much. I had nobody here, really. Except you. Sure, I could flee somewhere else, but it's you. Egan's Rat won't leave an end loose. If Green had reached St. Louis, they have come back and tied you up. I can run from town to town, but I can't make you do that. I was the one who told you to take the case, remember? I had to stop them from hounding the rest of your life. I stared at him without thought or emotion. He said, I did this for you. Puta que pariu. Puta que pariu. O cara tá desiludido pra caralho. Poetic, Frankie, I countered, but this only proves you had no faith in me. Just like Green, who hired me because he thought I wouldn't see through his scheme. Or his wife, who was hoping I would gum up the works for the police. You thought I couldn't hold my own. I'm just some flapper playing in a man's world, is that right? Frankie shrugged. I just wanted to protect you. I can protect myself, I told him, and without any murders. He sighed. I suppose I wouldn't blame you for taking me in, he said. No, I won't fight if you want me to drag me to the hall. The police have stopped looking for a killer. If you let me, I keep running. It's up to you. Puta que pariu, brother. Ah, caralho, brother. Não, eu não posso deixar isso acontecer. Ele matou alguém, ele matou uma pessoa, ele assassinou uma pessoa. Não importa se foi honestamente, se foi por desilusão, ele matou uma pessoa. Se eu deixar ele ir para outro lugar, o que vai parar ele de matar mais uma pessoa? Eu não tô aqui por amizade, eu sou uma detetive. Todo mundo ri de mim porque eu sou uma péssima detetive? Bom, eu tenho que fazer o que uma detetive tem que fazer. A Case of Distrust. Aí, um monte de gente. Ah, as pessoas são realmente pessoas. Tipo, não atores, né, mas a cara deles. Tá aí. Achamos quem matou. A Case of Distrust. Eu tô gravando esses 3 episódios há 2 horas e 14 minutos. Vocês estão vendo aí todo o crédito, né? Thank you for playing. Muito obrigado por você ter feito o jogo. E muito obrigado por vocês que assistirem. Quem assistir, né? Achei muito legal o jogo. Achei muito legal mesmo. O jogo tem suas falhas. Tem suas travas, suas barrigas. Né? esse negócio de você ter que olhar para detalhes ínfimos para achar fatos importantíssimos. Isso é difícil, isso não é para todo mundo. Pequenas coisas, dividir muito as falas faz com que às vezes você não bote a fala certa, mas pensando na coisa certa de se fazer. É um jogo que tem suas falhas, mas é interessantíssimo. Uma história bem feita, um gameplay bem feito, um estilo único, estilo completamente único, estilo completamente lindo, incrivelmente lindo, eu achei maravilhoso. Uma aventura em texto com uma parte gráfica, mas a parte gráfica não é junto ao texto, como é na LucasArts, por exemplo. É um complemento, uma forma de deixar mais interessante, uma trilha sonora maravilhosa. Então, assim, numa lista de top 10 jogos que eu teria jogado esse ano, que eu faço pra mim, né, essas listas, a Case of Distrust provavelmente não estaria no meu top 10, mas estaria nas minhas menções notáveis, como, né, as honorable mentions, menções honrosas. É um jogo muito diferente do que eu já joguei em toda a minha vida. Eu já joguei algumas aventuras em texto, gosto, mas isso foi muito diferente. E o fato de você poder acusar as pessoas erradas também é muito interessante. Difícil, é um jogo difícil, mas muito legal, muito legal. Espero que você tenha gostado dessa jornada. Espero que você não tenha achado muito ruim esse episódio grande. Provavelmente ficou grande. Quer dizer, com certeza ficou grande. E com essa trilha sonora pequenininha aí no fundo. Vou apertar aqui pra passar provavelmente para pro menu, né? Eita, tem mais coisas. It was a few mornings later that I received a knock on my door. A small man in a light blue uniform asked me to sign for a package and handed me an envelope and a brown box. I opened the envelope. It was the large looped writing of Mrs. Frances Green. It was a long note spanning multiple leaves. I only skimmed most of it. She must have used every allegory known to man to apologize for her behavior in the case. She then claimed she was starting life anew, ridding herself of her reminders of her late husband. Finally, she said she was sorry about Franklin and any part she played in his unfortunate actions. Pois é. As I read the name Franklin again, a drop fell and smudged the ink. I wiped my cheek before more drops could join it. Mrs. Green's note ended with the hope that this gift of hers would begin to remedy any grudges I'd had against her, though truly I felt none. I turned to the box and removed one side of tape from the cardboard, then snapped the flaps open with a couple of loud pops. Rolled in a loose ball inside the box was Lois's gray coat. I put it on and looked at myself in the mirror. Mirror, será que a gente vai ver ela? Olha ela aí. I grabbed the labels and pulled them tight. The trench coat suited me. Realmente ficou lindo. I wondered how Green had first gotten hold of it. That innocent question was about to lead to a lot of trouble. É outro caso, né? Master's Luth. Tá aí. Ai, meu amigo. Essa música é muito boa. Muito bom. A Case of Distrust. Gente, pra quem assistiu, muito, muito obrigado se você assistiu. Tomara que você tenha gostado tanto quanto eu gostei. Eu achei muito único. Foi uma experiência, nossa, absurdamente diferente de tudo que eu já tive. Gostei bastante. E enfim. Muito obrigado por assistir. Espero que você tenha gostado. E até a próxima. Semana que vem a gente volta com Hollow Knight. Um beijão.